What's up, all you beautiful people? Welcome to the podcast. So Anuj had asked me this question. How important do you think choosing your location is? Meaning where you live for the majority of life, whether that comes to business, general living, dating, networking, all that stuff, right? This is one of those topics that a lot of people don't think about. Recently, Naval was on Chris Williamson's podcast, Modern Wisdom, and they were talking about how most people don't put very much time and energy into the really big decisions in life. The big decisions being who you're gonna spend the rest of your life with, in terms of your significant other, your friends, your family, and then where you're gonna live. Where you're gonna live is one of those decisions that I would say 90% of people. I don't have the statistics on this, so I'm just gonna throw out wildly large numbers to make my point, but I would hazard to guess that about 90% of people they will die within, let's say, 50 miles of where they were born. Majority of people just never end up migrating beyond their social nucleus in which they just happen to be born. The friends, the families that they forged when they were a child. They went to school randomly with people that just happened to be born in the same local geographic region. That's going to be their entire life, and they're never going to expand beyond that. And then they're going to look up one day and they're going to wonder why their life didn't look terribly different than their parents' life and their grandparents' life. And that's just because most people, they're going to stay within that environment. And so much of your life, your potential, is dictated by your environment, based off the people that you surround yourself with, the opportunities that you have exposure to. And so one of the quickest, easiest ways that you can transform your life is to expand the environment in which you spend your time. And we know this, we talk about this all the time. If you're in your 20s, I would highly encourage you, as you're looking at, say, going into college, or you're looking at taking your first career, is like, don't stay where you are unless you already are somewhere that's worth being. And so, like, if you're born in New York, it's cool. Yeah, you can stay in New York. If you're born in LA, cool, you can stay in LA. I would still encourage you to get outside those environments and go elsewhere, specifically relative to the thing that you want to do. So if you want to be in software, you probably should go to Silicon Valley. If you want to be in the movies, you should probably go to LA, right? Go figure out where the people are that are doing the thing that you want to do. Not just the people, but the best people. Go figure out where the absolute cream of the crop, the best humans, are doing the thing, and then go be around them. I think that's really important, especially in the formative years of your life, to spend that time around the people with the potential. I did this with my rock climbing career, and like overnight, my abilities expanded exponentially. It was pretty crazy. I was a big fish in a small pond here in Minnesota, because there's just not a lot of rock. I don't know if you guys know this, but it's a pretty flat state, right? And there's not a ton of rock climbers, so it's very easy to rise to the top of the ranks here. So then I moved to California, which, I don't know if you know this, but tons of rocks, tons of people, tons of really high caliber athletes. Suddenly I was no longer a big fish in a little pond. I realized I wasn't even a fish. I was like a toad, in a little puddle. And so now I'm like in the ocean with all these big fucking scary whales and sharks and things that I'd never even seen before. And I had to sink or swim. I had to rise. I had to either get eaten by them, or I had to go become something that was similar to them. And within just 6 to 9 months, suddenly I was no longer this frog. I looked a lot more like the sharks that I was swimming with. And then after like years of this, I became a shark within a sea of sharks. Well, now that shark goes back to Minnesota, and it's like they've never seen anything like this before. And that was part of the reason why I fell out of love with climbing, actually. Is like one of the big mistakes from my climbing career was I moved from a small place to a big place, expanded my world, expanded my horizons, my capacities. And then I went back to some place. I changed the environment, and I went back to some place that made me feel small, or that was small, and I shrunk back again. And so just because you expanded to this one level as you went out into the world, if you come back, it's going to bring you back down. So you need to be spending a lot of time consciously evaluating what are the environments that you're spending your time in. Now, I'm not just of the mindset that you should choose where to live based off of the place that's going to make you the most financial impact, or the most career impact. Those are the lenses that I recommend most people in their youth look for, right? Because you're trying to figure out how to win the money game, try to find your place in the world. You should probably go and try to optimize the environment for that thing that you want to go do. But there will come a point when you have kids, when you're older, when you start to look at life a little bit differently and you're not so much in pursuit of making money in your career. And now you're starting to wonder, like, now what do I do? Well, a lot of people will make that decision based off of proximity to family, which again, I'm telling you this because I did this. I left Minnesota. I went out into the world. I did all sorts of great, cool things. And I came back to Minnesota. And I'll tell you, I feel smaller now than I did 7-8 years ago, right? I became small again. The reason was I wanted proximity to family. But in the grand scheme of things, that was the decision matrix that I used to make that decision. But I didn't take into consideration all the other environmental cues that were just as important, and which is now the reason why I'm looking at leaving Minnesota, right? Like, I was planning on moving out to Colorado last year. Then one of my businesses had all sorts of issues. I had to stay and get involved with that. But the other things that you really want to be looking at is places that fill you with joy. I think that is a very undervalued idea, is like to live someplace that makes you feel joyful. Minnesota is great. Don't get me wrong. It's a fantastic place, in fact. But the winters do not make me feel joyful. So for many, many months out of the year, I experience a complete lack of joy. Things that bring me a lot of joy are being near the outdoors, being in proximity to the epic. So that's mountains, that's oceans, that's something out in Mother Nature where I can challenge myself against man's greatest foe, right? Nature is undefeated in the history of humanity in terms of killing us. And so I like to go out there and challenge myself that. Minnesota doesn't have any of that. And if I had used that matrix, that decision decision matrix when I was making the decision to move back to Minnesota, I probably wouldn't have moved here, because I would have realized, oh, actually, that doesn't have one of the core things that I want. Yes, it has family, but it doesn't have all this other stuff. And you have to make the trade-off, the pros and the cons of like, what is the most valuable, most important thing to you. But I think just generally, people undervalue their mobility. And they tend to just stay where they are because moving is a lot of work. It's very stressful. It's very expensive. It's very scary moving someplace with people that you don't know. And you're giving up your social network back home. You're giving up your friends and family that you've created lifelong bonds with. And so most people will they will live where they were born and they will die where they were born. And that's the reason why I started this episode talking about how 90% of people, they don't go anywhere with their life. They might go and travel and visit, but they never move beyond that space. And I think that's a shame, because the world is so freaking amazing. It's so big. And you, as a consequence of moving towards your greatness, I don't think you can be your biggest, greatest self if you never get outside of that initial environment in which you were born. And so I just encourage you, do not undervalue or underutilize your mobility. Do not get stuck in this feeling of inertia. Just because you've always lived here, then this is where you have your friends, your family, all your network. Don't let that be the anchor that stops you from casting off for unseen shores, because it's in that casting off, it's in that pursuit that you will experience new storms. And in those storms, you will become a more competent, more beautiful, more potent sailor. And you will see beautiful lands, beautiful things, beautiful people that you never could have imagined before. So I encourage you to spend a lot of time thinking about where you're going to live, and do not get sucked into the idea that just because this is where you are, this is where you need to stay. You can move. You can leave. I don't know who needs to hear this. You have my permission to go out into the world, go forth and find that environment in which you can continue to expand. And I think that's how you will bring the world the most beauty, the most glory, the most light from your greatness, is by not just sitting and playing small. So don't know. There's probably somebody out there who's listening who needed to hear that. So if that's you, good luck, Godspeed. I'll see you in the next episode.